The James Show Podcast.
You're not going to like this next story. This one's a little bit bothersome, and it happened in our own backyard. There's a couple of young adults from Parker County, and apparently they were getting along quite swimmingly. At one point they were. Well, it turns out the girl got pregnant. Now, they're not married. They're not engaged. They're not even really dating. And the girl wanted to keep it. The man didn't. The man said, look, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for you to go get an abortion. I don't want to get an abortion. Look, all we got to do is order these drugs online. I can just go online, order some drugs. I'll order them to me. I'll pay for it. I'll hand them to you. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to pay for them. You don't have to do the delivery. You don't have to go online. I'll take care of all of it. I'll just give you the drug. She said, no, you don't understand. I want to keep the baby. It's not like that it's just an inconvenience or it's expensive. I don't want to have an abortion. So the young man says, all right, look, why don't you meet me for coffee? We'll talk about it. So they went to some place in Benbrook. When the girl gets there, the coffee's already on the table. She drinks the coffee, has a chat. It doesn't go very well, but she soon gets sick. She goes to the hospital. She loses the baby. The thought is, I was feeling just fine until I drank that coffee. Could there possibly be something in the coffee that caused this? Yes. We now have a North Texas man charged with capital murder for allegedly slipping the pro-abortion drug into his sort of girlfriend's coffee. Yikes. So this is all happening. He was arrested on Friday in Parker County. And then he was also charged by the Texas Rangers for murder. I don't know what the difference in jurisdictions overlapping there happens to be. But apparently secretly giving a pregnant woman an abortion-inducing drug is murder. Or allegedly whatever this what he's being charged with. So this comes up with a few lines of debate here. Let walk through this with me because there's some interesting aspects to this. Because if she wanted to kill the baby, if she took the drug herself, would that still be murder? Well, in Texas, past a certain point, it would be. But let's just go ahead and go with the hypothetical that she's ahead of the deadline. Then would it be murder? What if she was in another state, like a California or something, that just loves abortion? You know, there's some places where all the way up until birth, she can elect to kill that baby whenever she wants, and it's not murder. So what's the difference here? Is it just murder because the mother didn't consent to taking the abortion drug? Did the consent or the lack of consent, is that what made it murder? Because if lack of a consent is what makes it murder, does it become murder when a woman takes an abortion drug against the will of the father? If consent is the deciding factor, does that not apply to all abortions that happen without the man's consent, or does the man's consent not matter? 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. And so there's a lot of pro-choice people that listen to this show. I want to talk to you. Do you think this is murder? And if you do think this is murder, then why isn't a regular abortion murder? What is the difference if the dad doesn't want to consent? 800-288-9227. Now, I'm on a 30-second delay, but in 30 seconds, I'm not expecting the phones to ring a whole lot. Because people don't want to have that discussion. It's hard. It's not fun. But there's also, it's a logical catch-22. It's a trap, for sure. Because even if you are in favor of abortion, this probably rubs you the wrong way. You probably don't like the way this went down. You probably think, well, you can't force a woman to have an abortion. Oh, why not? Is that wrong? It's not like anybody died. It's not like it was a human. It was just a clump of cells. So how do the people in my audience who are pro-abortion, how do you feel about this story in your head? If you're pro-life, I already get it. Of course you think it's murder. You think all abortion's murder. You're not going to be any fun. Let me talk to the other side on this one. 800-288-9227. Let's go to Greg in Waco. You're on WBAP. Your thoughts?
Well, you brought that into an interesting situation, and it's very valid. I guess my thought is he certainly assaulted her body, and in that assault, a life was taken, and depending on how the judge views the life of a fetus, I guess you could say that would be manslaughter at least. But he certainly assaulted the woman's body, so I guess it goes from there.
Yeah, I think the lawyers would actually call that battery too, assault and battery. But I don't know. Aggravated assault because there was a weapon used, like a fatal weapon, the abortion-inducing drug. See, this is where we need like a Nancy Grace or maybe a Jeremy Rosenthal to come on. But yeah, it's something. It's definitely something. Capital murder. I don't mind it being capital murder. What do you think? Does that bother you?
Well, your point about what if a man wants it and the wife doesn't, or the woman doesn't? That goes into a whole different. It puts it in a whole different league, and I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, look, a lot of people don't want to answer that question because that means there's a certain percentage, maybe even a majority of abortions that happen every year that should be called murder because they didn't get the husband's consent, or I'm sorry, I should say the father's consent. I love it. Thank you very much, Greg in Waco. This is Antoinette in Northeast Ohio. Are you there now?
Hello.
Yeah, you're in Northeast Ohio?
I am.
Okay, well, welcome to the James Show. What do you think about this, the guy who slipped his pregnant girlfriend the abortion drug?
Well, that's really sad that it comes down to that, people can't communicate. And that's the biggest problem right there. I mean, you can't force your will upon somebody else for any reason. And it's the same as if you do a date rape drug, that's just punishable. That should be punishable by law. I had a date rape drug one time. You go away for a second to get a drink, and then they put something in your thing, and to try to get with you. But anyway, long story short, yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know that it's going to be capital murder because it's really hard. It'll be interesting to see that if those charges will be followed through with or not. Number one, because it's a man that did it. I don't know in today's society if that still holds weight, but a lot of times it is still a man's world, But I don't know. I don't know. It's gonna be probably something that will need to be addressed, maybe even by the Supreme Court until they have a thing. But like you were saying, should the woman then in turn have that when she didn't consult the father?
Yeah,
and
what do you think?
That's a really tricky thing because, a woman's body is now a woman's body, and what she does is what she does, So
as someone in Northeast Ohio, I think I can explain the capital murder part because basically almost all abortions are illegal in Texas at this point. And the charges for abortion don't go on the woman who had the abortion. It goes on the doctor who killed the fetus or killed the baby. And in this one, this is a guy who killed the baby, so he's going to be treated like a guy who killed a baby. So this isn't like an accidental abortion or an abortion that wasn't consented to.
No.
This was a murder that wasn't consented to, but in the eyes of Texas. So I think that's where that comes from. I'm sorry you got slipped the date rape drug. I have a shocking number of women who have told me similar stories, and I don't know if they've ever done the surveys. I feel like it's like 1 out of 7 or 1 out of 6 women have had something slipped to them. Not all of it, came to completion. A lot of them get caught before the guy takes them away. But that's such a scary story to hear. Thank you, Antoinette. So bothersome people do that. Doesn't that take the fun out of it? Jessica in Arlington, you're on WBAP.
Hi, yes. Sorry, my name is Jessica. I'm calling from Arlington, Texas. I actually am pro-choice, but at the same time, I feel like you can't have it both ways.
Wow.
I think this boils down to a case of assault. Kind of like what she was saying, like he slipped her a drug without her permission, right? Without her consent. That's assault. I don't necessarily think that's murder.
So if you assault somebody and they die, that's murder.
That's true.
Because he didn't assault her. He assaulted the human being that's inside of her in the eyes of the Texas law.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
So if it's not murder, is it manslaughter or just assault?
Mm-hmm. No, because like I said, I'm pro-choice. I think that people should be able to choose. I've had an abortion myself, and it was the right choice. Me and my husband at the time sat down. We talked about it. It was the right choice for us at the time. But like she was saying, there's the lack of communication there is what broke that down. But at the same time, if you are pro-choice, you can't sit there and say that that this is murder.
Well, I don't think it's a breakdown in communication. They communicated very well. She wanted to keep it. He didn't. He offered to pay for it, send her to another state to make it happen and all that. So what happens if the roles are reversed? What if the girl doesn't want to keep it, but the guy does? Is there no moral requirement for her to get consent from him?
I think that there should be. And like I said, if she wanted to keep it and he didn't, he should have just signed his rights away. Sign your complete rights away. You're not on the birth certificate. You have no financial or, at that point, any kind of obligation legally to the woman or the child. If you don't want to have anything to do with it, sign your rights away. If she decides that she wants to have a baby on her own, let her have a baby on her own.
Well, look, I'm glad that someone who deviates so far from the norm of the WBAP audience is part of the James Show. Thank you very much for listening and calling in, Jessica.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
All right. Bye. Saw the story on Dallas Express. This was in response for an event that happened yesterday where anti-ICE left-wing protesters staged an event called Retake the Alamo. Oh, hell no. No. You can go retake some random 5 blocks in Los Angeles. You can even go tear up some stuff in downtown Austin or whatever. But when you want to start talking about the Alamo, you're kind of hitting a sensitive spot here for every red-blooded Texan that's ever existed. My next guest did something about it. Dr. Don Buckingham, your Texas Land Commissioner, coming back on the James Show. They were really trying to take the Alamo. You know, they didn't think that maybe Texans would be a little sensitive if thousands of people of Mexican heritage waving the Mexican flag showed up at the Alamo. You know, it's kind of a sensitive topic.
Well, sensitive or not, they're not taking the Alamo ever. We're not going to give 1 inch. We'll defend it till the end of time. Those walls are going to stay standing. We had an amazing presence from Department of Public Safety, from the San Antonio Police. I want to give a huge shout out to our chief of the Alamo Rangers, Gerald Ramirez, who did an amazing job. They took so many steps in anticipation of problems. We went through the night relatively quietly. And but yeah, don't worry, we're up. We're defending the Alamo. It's not falling anytime soon.
So, what was their plan? Were they going to occupy the Alamo, like they have occupied the administration buildings at Columbia or whatever?
Well, if you look at their patterns from the other cities that we've seen the protests in, where you've seen fires, you've seen bricks thrown through windows, you've seen all kinds of destructive forces, we were just not tolerating it. We just weren't going to have it. So we had a huge law enforcement presence. We had all kinds of drones in the air watching every inch of everyone's movement. We were quick to act. We took away any sources of potential fires or bricks that they could throw, or we fenced off a lot of the important statues that they might come after. So we did everything to defend the Alamo. We're going to continue to do so. That increased presence is going to be there through the weekend. We're not backing down.
Do they think this is going to help them in the court of public opinion? I mean, if you want to tick off Texans, mess with the Alamo.
Well, I tell you what, it was very, very interesting because, of course, we had all of our employees leave a little early so that they were out of the way of the protesters. The police didn't have to worry about protecting employees as well as the building. We wanted them to focus on the physical structures. But what we noted was car after car after car coming in the garage were out-of-state license plates. They weren't Texas license plates. So it was predominantly New Mexico, but we got several calls from our employees back that just said, hey, we're seeing just out-of-state license plate pulling in to the garage, which kind of gives you this idea. These people are here for trouble. They are not Texans. A lot of them who are leading these protests. We're seeing a lot of the instigators, same as we saw as the Antifa riots several years ago. So again, we're going to defend the Alamo. We are standing strong. We've had a really good strategic plan, and we're going to continue to do it.
All right, we're talking with Dr. Don Buckingham, Texas Land Commissioner. Now, I don't generally perceive the Texas Land Commissioner as an arm of law enforcement. What is your association with the Alamo?
Well, so technically we have ownership on behalf of the state of Texas. We have ownership of the Alamo. The Alamo Trust runs it. We actually were, not this past session, but the session before, we were given the ability to have a law enforcement arm. This last session, they decided that DPS should oversee it as a kind of an arm of DPS, kind of like they do the Capitol district, which I agree with, but that bill, of course, doesn't take effect for 2.5 years almost. So in that meantime, we'll do whatever it takes. We'll partner with all the law enforcement agencies. Really appreciate Department of Public Safety and, of course, Governor Abbott for getting them out and about and realizing that the Alamo is a priority. It is definitely a target, and we are going to protect it.
Well, Dr. Buckingham, sounds like you had a heads up on this one. In the pictures I saw from San Antonio last night, there was already phalanxes of cops in full gear right on the perimeter of the Alamo before the crowd even got there.
Yes. I mean, we were locked and loaded, ready to defend, arm in arm, hundreds of law enforcement officers tasked with that. Of course, there were also some storms that rolled through, and we had some pretty big flooding later into the evening, which was a bit of an adventure as well. So there's lots of things going on there. But again, you know, the Alamo is going to stand. We will defend it till the end of time. We are not giving a millimeter to anyone. We're not tolerating any bad behavior. If you think you're coming for the Alamo, then you're getting a fight.
Well, I also saw, and this is rumors, I didn't see this in any news outlets, just floating through social media, that Texans, just regular civilians, started showing up with guns to sort of stand guard at the Alamo. Is that true? Did we see any of that?
It is. There's a group that were out there ready to defend, and they were the same group that came out several years ago. And, you know, it always gets a little tricky when you have law enforcement and civilians.
Well, talk to me about who is this group?
I forget the name right now, but you know, we really appreciate their intent and their dedication to the Alamo. But sometimes civilians get in the way of law enforcement when other civilians are trying to protest.
Well, that's cool.
That didn't happen yesterday, but it was cool to have them there. And you know, we appreciate Texans standing strong. Sorry
to interrupt. I'm running out of time here. I saw guys, there was pictures that were floating around on X/Twitter, whatever we're calling it these days. These guys had what looked like AR-15s, and they looked like they were ready to go, and they weren't a problem. They were on the side of the Alamo.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Love that.
We definitely have groups that come out and defend the Alamo as well and are ready to stand strong.
Well, round of applause for those guys. Round of applause for the police, the DPS, the San Antonio police, everyone standing guard there. And thanks for keeping an eye on the Alamo for us. This is Dr. Don Buckingham, your Texas Land Commissioner. Don't give up a millimeter.
No, don't worry.
Because all we have to do is literally remember the Alamo. See what I did there? Yeah, that's a bad joke. That's probably more like a dad joke. The next James Show listener meetup is going to be at Hyenas in Dallas, June 29th. There's a comedy show. Alex Stein is headlining from The Blaze, or you've probably seen him scrolling through your social media feed where he does the rapping or singing in front of city councils when they do the public speeches. Well, he's doing a comedy show, and he's a friend of the show, and you may have heard him on previous episodes. But I'll be opening for him there, and then we'll be hanging out afterwards. If you need more details, look it up online. Don't be lazy. Also, I've been doing a deep dive into some of the groups around here in preparation for the protests that are coming up on Saturday. Now, they're styling these the No Kings protest because if, the fantasy isn't sticking about we're fighting against literally Hitler. Okay, now we're fighting against literally kings. Really? He's a king? That's what we're going with now. So they have this whole, it's a good chanting line, no kings, no kings. And if you see at some of these other rallies and events, they've got some chants worked out. But it's been a fun deep dive going into some of the organizations that are just around here in the DFW area. They have a No Kings for Dallas. They have an Indivisible that's for the DFW area. There's a 5051 that's also for the DFW area. There's all kinds of fun newsletters that you can sign up for, social media accounts that you can follow. And so I've been going through it. One thing I find is you got to give them credit where credit's due. Their politics are just off the charts batty. Their worldview is not really grounded at all. You're not really fighting against the king. You're not really fighting against Hitler. None of us are fascists. No one's a fascist on the other side. But they are pretty good at music. I'll give them that. I'm going to play one of their little theme songs. They've made some songs to set some of these little action videos that have highlights from rallies or upcoming rallies that are happening. And I like this song. This isn't a bad song. You'll hear one thing that's beeped out, and it's an MF. the bad word that has an M and an F as the starting parts of the compound word. So that's what the big beepy here is, MFer.
There ain't no kings in the USA. You're not God, no matter what you say.
Well, I know I'm not God.
You break your word, you steal and lie, but you can't break us, no matter how you try. This land is ours, and we are free, from the desert sands to the shining sea.
Yeah, that's enough of that. That's not bad. Good voice, good harmonies. I know that there wasn't a whole lot musically going on. Just a little like acoustic kick drum. And then they sprung in a banjo at the end. You didn't expect to hear a banjo at the Woke Rally, did you? So their music's pretty good. I'll give them that. It kind of explains why so many of you, the music you like is made by people whose politics is just absolutely bat guano crazy. Another fun little piece of viral video that I want to run by you in this last segment is, okay, maybe you're not a Nazi, like you have the armband on with the swastika. Maybe you're not doing the salutes and you're not in the brown shirts. But if you're standing by during these ICE raids, that makes you a Nazi. Follow me.
I'm not calling you a Nazi, and I'm not calling you a slave owner. But if you're a bystander during these ICE raids, then that's exactly what you would have been doing during those times as well.
Really?
Did you think you would have been one of those who hid Anne Frank? Are you hiding your Mexican coworker? I'm not saying you would have been throwing rocks at Jesus, but are you standing between ICE and your neighbor? Because these are not normal deportations. The Nazis in Germany believed that the Jews are being deported. They were absolutely not. And in the same way, this administration is trying to do the same. So ask yourself, would you have been a slave owner? Would you have been a Nazi?
So this is why so many people have already gone past all of this just even bickering nuance and said, if you're calling me a Nazi, I'm declaring victory. So enforcing immigration laws now qualifies you as a Nazi. Not even enforcing the laws. If law enforcement bodies whose sole job it is, they only have one job, that is enforcing our immigration laws. If you don't go interfere with law enforcement officers executing their just duties, then you're a Nazi. Y'all don't feel like that's a bit of a stretch? Is that what Hitler did? Is that what fascists do? Do you just like anything you don't like becomes a Nazi? Because that's what it sounds like. And if that's the case, then it doesn't really mean anything, does it? All right. Well, you better go stop some ICE raids now or you're a Nazi. All right. You got it? I think that's the takeaway we're supposed to learn from here. Good Lord, people, calm down. You're not saving the world. You're not fighting literally Hitler. We're just enforcing the laws like every other country on planet Earth does. All right, Ranger fans, listen up. June 18th, that's this coming Wednesday, 6 days from now, Texas Rangers are going to take on the Kansas City Royals here at Globe Life Field. And if you're financially efficient, I don't want to say cheap. I want to say financially efficient like old Parker here. You're going to like the fact that it's Dollar Hot Dog Wednesday presented by Texas Chili Company. So here's where it gets even better. You want to win a family 4-pack of tickets? Text the word Rangers to the same phone number you used to call in, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. So check that out. You could win free tickets. You could go to the game on Wednesday, you and your family. You can get Dollar Hot Dogs. I mean, we're pretty much setting you up for everything but parking here. So text the word Rangers to 800-288-9227. All right, when you go back out in the world, remember the James Show podcast is waiting on you. I've got some fun videos on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, X, all the social media. So go check out the James Show whenever you're getting some good alone phone time. I don't know. Maybe you're in the bathroom. Maybe you're in a traffic jam. Who knows? But remember me next time you're on social media and look me up. I'm James Parker. Mark Levin's next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.